Time to hit the road. Turn left. Caution. Please mind the speed limit. Stay left, and then exit left. Exit left.
Darren. Darren never used to like the motorway. Then one day, he discovered a better way to drive. Now Darren never hogs the middle lane and always keeps at least 2 seconds from the vehicle in front, reducing congestion, collisions and transforming his journey. Take it away, Darren. Little changes change everything. National Highways.
School reunion. What am I doing getting these people together after all these years? The last time we shared a room, there was leg warmers and rah skirts involved.
We can't help the uncertainty around getting old friends together. But when it comes to bringing your old pensions together, we can help. Transfer all your old pensions into one place. To combine, go to standardlife.co.uk. Transferring pensions won't be right for everyone. Money invested is at risk. Provided by Phoenix Life Limited, trading as Standard Life. For full details, visit standardlife.co.uk.
Curtains drawn at dawn. Awake, and so does your potential. You don't let it snooze or sit around. You act on it. Run with it. Past the safety of routine and familiarity to somewhere new. Because anything is possible if you choose to make it happen.
Whether you're growing your business, switching careers, or just starting out, make the most of your potential. It all starts with skills. Search Skills for Life.
If you live with pain and discomfort caused by loose and missing teeth or dentures, our TDC Smile in a Day same-day dental implants restore a full set of natural-looking teeth so you get your smile and your confidence back.
I can eat what I like. I can smile all the time. I don't talk with my hand over my mouth. It's just made me so happy. It's like winning the lottery, I should imagine.
To book your consultation, visit smileinaday.co.uk. We're now part of Bupa.
I never thought of myself as the giving type, but I guess I am. I give my elderly neighbour's dog a walk every night, despite his barking being my alarm clock every morning. And I give blood when I can, because it helps combat cancer. It takes an hour and saves lives, like my mum's, who was here long enough to see her grandson take his first steps. Hiya! Coming! And she's still here. If you're the giving type, join the thousands of us giving blood every day. Book now at blood.co.uk.
Can you have your cake and
Get ready
eat
to
it?
turn right.
Well, if you're with Lloyds Bank and you're a Club Lloyds customer, maybe you can. With the Club Lloyds Advantage ISA Saver, you get instant access to your tax-free
Turn right.
savings and a higher interest rate of 4.25% AER if you make fewer withdrawals. You don't even have to like cake for that to make perfect sense. To get your money moving, search Club Lloyds Advantage ISA Saver. Open with £1, 4.17% tax-free variable interest paid monthly. Rate available if you make 3 or less withdrawals.
Matthew Wright on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I'm suspecting this message is anonymous message. It's not from someone who's medically qualified. It's, hi Matthew. Doctors need to prescribe exercise and an active, socially connected lifestyle. Well, maybe. You mentioned that you had issues sleeping. I bet if you jog 3 miles at a fast pace regularly, you'd sleep like a baby. Too easy to look for pills instead of lifestyle and a positive thinking attitude.
Caution. Please
It's a
mind the
nice
speed
sentiment.
limit.
Well, just so you know, dear anonymous messenger, so I used to exercise 3 times a week. Did it for 20 years. And when I started to develop my PTSD, the first thing that happened was I didn't want to go outside. I didn't want to exercise. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to sit at home getting drunk. That's all I wanted to do for a couple of years. And so I think it's really interesting that, yes, absolutely, exercise, get rid of your mobile phone, be socially connected. These are the right things to do. But what you need to take on board is often when people become ill, they can't do those things. That's part of the illness, so they do need help. So I just want to put that out there. That was my experience. It may not be everybody's, but yeah, helpful advice like go running. Just stop running because you feel depressed. It doesn't really work. Gary's picked up the phone from Northwich, Cheshire. Good morning to you, Gary. Happy Easter.
Oh, hi Matthew, thanks for keeping me company this morning. It's a great show so far. Thank you very much.
So far, that sounds ominous.
Well, it's a great show. It's always a great show. You know
Okay, enough. What do you know about antidepressants, Gary? What do you know?
Well, I've been quite sort of a period of depression over the last 18 months. I started with when my daughter stopped going to school. She was having anxiety and getting bullied at school and things like that.
Can you just, for the benefit of the listeners,
yeah,
it's difficult trying to describe you changed, if that makes any sense?
In terms of getting
as you became depressed, how did you change as a person?
Well, it can sometimes you try your best, like you say, you try and exercise, you try and do all the right things, but then you just feel it's like a weight on top of you, isn't it? You know. But so I went to the doctors a couple of weeks ago, and the doctor offered me antidepressants again, but I declined to take them. And the conversation with the doctor was great, and what we talked about was keeping in touch with friends and things like that. So I've got a good friend of mine who he comes out to see me a few times a week. He's also not been great, so together we go for a walk together, and that's really been helpful. Also, I'm now homeschooling my daughter, so we're taking control of that situation in a way that's helped me feel better. I journal as well, and I think I spoke to you.
I was recommended journaling, and I found it very difficult to do anything at all.
Yeah.
So I basically, one of the things I noticed, I stopped reading. I read for work, newspapers, but I can't read a book. Even now I can't read a book. I'm just my head's not there.
Well, I found that recently, and that's why I went to the doctor. I couldn't find any interest in anything like I used to love reading, but I stopped reading. So I carried on doing that, I carried on journaling, and also I've quit my smartphone as well, and I found that's really helpful. I spoke to you about this recently, and that's really helped me to. I think now, whereas previously I'd go on my phone at night and just scroll. Whereas now I've quit it, I can sit with my feelings more. I find that
it makes absolute sense to me, Gary. I'm kind of that's such a positive call to hear from someone who's been on antidepressants in the past, choosing not to go on them now, and actually making changes, being able to make changes in their life that are having positive effects. But that critical caveat, being able to make those changes. Some people can't. Gary, good luck to you. I want to talk very briefly about slavery, because I noted when Theresa May announced she was bowing out of Parliament the other day, the creator of our anti-immigrant hostile environment scheme was going off to do a bit fighting modern slavery, which is very laudable. But I would suggest you can start the fight right now, after The Guardian revealed that our labour abuse watchdog has had its funding cut by the Home Office as demands for its services reach new highs. Modern slavery helplines recorded a surge in calls, while this agency, the Gangsters and Labour Abuse Authority, saw a 400% rise in allegations since the launch of a post-Brexit scheme to recruit care workers from abroad. Why cut the budget? Well, Anthony Steen is Chairman Emeritus of the Human Trafficking Foundation and a former Special Envoy for Modern Slavery to Theresa May. Good morning to you.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
What's going on at the GLAA then? Why was the funding cut? It seems a crazy time to do it.
Look, I'm a great supporter of the Gang Masters Licensing Authority. I think it does very important work. However, I don't think one must confuse having to cut the budget with not being in favour of the work of the organisation. I think the problem has been simply we've become a poor country, sadly, since we left the EU. And having to cut all sorts of things now in all sorts of organisations which they wouldn't wish to do. And that is the basic bottom line.
What does the GLAA do? The GLAA, what does it actually do? How does it function?
The GLAA has a very committed workforce that do check that organisations that are working with all sorts of skills are actually not exploiting the workers. Slavery with the Gang Masters Licensing Authority is not in terms of sex slavery or domestic abuse. It's about work abuse. And when you pay less than the minimum wage, they land on the back of you and say, look here, this is illegal because you have to pay the minimum wage, just like many other things. It's about obeying the law, and the Gang Masters Licensing Authority are involved in seeing that employers don't exploit their workers.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but if you've got an agency going out there to ensure people are being employed correctly, it would follow that they would be paying their taxes correctly, or you'd like to think so, which would mean there were revenues coming into government that would enable them to fund the very people that have ensured those contracts, those working environments were legal and above board.
Doing the wrong job. The problem, though, is we've got cut all sorts of things that they shouldn't be cutting. And we've also got a very much smaller workforce. And for all those reasons, all sorts of things which I, and I'm sure you would like to see funded, are being reduced in that funding. And the Gangmasters Licensing Authority, which is a laudable organisation and with a lot of excellent people in it, and I've worked with it since it started 20 years ago, have had their budget cut. But there are many other organisations which have paid too much, or government has employed too many people. I don't think it's the right conclusion that because they've reduced the amount of money for the Gangmasters Licensing Authority that they are anti-slavery. I think what it is, I think the priority, because slavery has suddenly become old hat in many ways, that the public have lost interest in it. And that to me is very much more concerning, because it's still, slavery is still very evident in Britain, and it's not just paying people less, although that's one element of it. It's also about the other aspects of slavery, which is still evident in Britain.
Anthony Sting, pleasure talking to you, Chair Emeritus of the Human Trafficking Foundation. Funny, isn't it? Nigel Farage never mentioned cutting support for modern slavery busting agencies during the Brexit campaign. That one never got mentioned. You listen to Matthew Wright on LBC. Time for some more headlines from Jenny Barsby.
Well-wishers are gathering in Windsor to catch a glimpse of King Charles on his first high-profile public appearance since his cancer diagnosis. He's due to attend this morning's traditional Easter Sunday service, accompanied by the Queen and other members of the royal family. A new poll says Labour would win a landslide victory at the general election, taking 468 seats. People predicts the Tories would win fewer than 100. And 10 million households are being urged to send a meter reading to their supplier today to ensure they don't overpay when cheaper prices come into effect tomorrow. The price cap, which sets the maximum you can be charged per unit, will fall 12.3%, saving people around £20 a month. LBC weather, mostly dry with sunny spells today, though central and eastern England could see some showers. Top temperature 15 degrees.
LBC. This Easter at McDonald's, get a Happy Meal for just $1.99. Consider afternoon play dates, post-swimming cravings, and sofa movie marathons sorted. Exclusively available in the McDonald's app until the 14th of April. 18 plus, app only, one-time use daily, ends 14th of April. Participating restaurants only, subject to availability, T's and C's apply.
He said he doesn't feel well this morning, but he's not burning up. Maybe he should stay home from school today, just to be safe. It can be confusing to know when to send your child to school if they say they're poorly. But if they have a cough, a cold, or even a runny nose, unless your child has a temperature of 38 degrees or above, they're usually good to go. If in doubt, check the NHS school illness guidance for their symptoms to see if they should stay home. Moments matter. Attendance counts. Search NHS school illness guidance.
Ever since I've been investing with Vanguard, I find myself going,
For me, it's because they've got over 45 years experience. Love that.
I love the low fees, because I can keep more returns.
And I love that the investment platform's been recommended by Which 5 years running.
surely that deserves a...
Join more than 50 million investors around the world who love Vanguard Value. Vanguard. Value to investors. When investing, your capital is at risk.
This is it. Number 23.
Final. Let's go.
Let's go.
Guys, I need power. Turbocharge your gaming and reduce lag with EE Game Mode. Even when everyone's online, this is broadband made for gaming from the UK's fastest major broadband provider. Search EE Broadband, powered by BT.
EE Game Mode requires EE Smart Hub Plus. To verify, see ee.co.uk/claims.
Are you an absolutely huge fonter or a zoom-inner? Perhaps you're an arm stretched out like a zombie when holding a newspaper, or a squint so tightly at the menu the waiter thinks you're sleeping. At Specsavers, we get it. You don't want to admit it's time to become a glasses wearer. That's okay. We're ready to see you whenever you're ready to see properly. Book an eye test at specsavers.co.uk so you can see clearer. Okay, we'll stop with the ears now.
You've arrived, and you're shown straight through to your seat. You've already perused the menu, which looks amazing, and you've ordered in advance. All that's left to do is relax. Oh, and pop your
Plus, the process was so quick and easy, it was one less thing to think about. Who got more money with Motorway? That's right, Mummy did. Oh yes, she did. Babies love me. Sell your car the more money way, where 84% of sellers sold for more. Motorway. Validated against 2 independent sources. Visit motorway.co.uk/claims.
This is LBC with Matthew Wright.
Yes, indeed, Matthew Wright here at LBC this Easter Sunday alongside Mr. David Lammy. Good morning to you, David.
Hi, Matthew.
What have you got on the show today then?
Well, I'm going to do this story around Union Jacks on election material. Obviously, our material, Labour Party's got Union Jacks everywhere at the moment. I think it's great. But there was a meeting this week, apparently. I wasn't at the meeting, where some complained, and I know that there is a view on the left of the Labour Party, amongst some, that the Union Jack puts people off. So I'm going to talk about that.
Can I just ask, because I went through pictures of Prime Ministers over the years. The first time you start seeing Union Jacks in every shot is around 2019. Thatcher very rarely seen with you, maybe at conference time. What's with all the flag idolatry? What's going on in Parliament?
Well, I think if you say, as we're saying, get Britain's future back, you can't be embarrassed about the symbol that gets the country together. I mean, why is it all right for, I remember people like Daley Thompson, Tessa Sanderson, Linford Christie, surrounding themselves in the Union Jack. Why is it all right for sports but not all right for a political party?
Good question.
Maybe I should get you on as a guest.
No. Anything else?
Britain's aid budget. Jenrick thinks that we should cut, former immigration minister, of course, thinks we should cut the aid budget and spend more on defence. Look, we've already cut the aid budget from 0.7% to 0.5%, and then they're spending about 3.7 billion on housing asylum seekers in the UK. Do we really want to cut the aid budget? So let's talk about that. And then, of course, this story of this meltdown in Tory support across the country. I'm sceptical.
Really?
I remember 1992. Everyone thought Kinnock was going to win.
Not by this margin. Not the polls the way they're going at the moment.
Look, I still think when I knock on people's doors, there's a lot of people out there who haven't made up their minds. So look, I want to hear from voters in Tory areas particularly.
Okay. David Lammy, have a wonderful Easter as well to boot. Lovely seeing you. Now then, we're going to be talking to Abigail Foster about personal finance in just a minute, as soon as we can find out if she's ready. Some messages here, though, on antidepressants, because this is, I think, where I started this hour on. And it's a message from Ian, and it reads, please read this out, Matthew. Antidepressants, for me, they are a godsend. They brought me out of an agitated depression 20 years ago. They took about a week to work. I have to say, it's more like 3 weeks. Took about a week to work. I had no significant side effects, and since then I've used them as and when necessary. Please do read this positive antidepressant story out. Consider it done. Now then, while we wait for more of your calls, we come to them in just a moment. Abigail is on the line, our spokesperson from ILENT, the Financial Literacy Workshop. Happy Easter, Abigail. How are you this morning?
Happy Easter. Good morning, Matthew. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm thinking that for some it's a big bank holiday. For people like yourself, you'll be thinking about really exciting, dynamic stuff like the end of the tax year.
Yes, indeed. It is. But for this, I wanted to get this in because obviously before next Sunday we will see the end of the tax year and the start of the new one. So next Saturday, 6th of April, is the renewal of the new tax year. So things I want people to be aware of is understanding the allowances that reset, and allowances like the ISA allowance is a use it or lose it scheme, which means if you haven't used your 20k ISA allowance, which for a lot of people I know is a huge amount of time to get to in the tax year, but if you do have any spare kind of money that you're not sure where to put that, even if you just put it into your ISA allowance in cash, at least you're not losing that allowance that does reset on the 6th. And then also pension allowance, please be aware you have that 60k in the tax year that does reset on the 6th of April, which has tax efficiencies like the ISA, but also has that kind of tax relief coming back to you especially if you are a higher and additional rate taxpayer, for sure.
I'm tempted to talk to you about pensions. I read a story the other day that I think it's a suggestion from Labour that the way things are going over national insurance, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that perhaps the state pension will eventually be means
generation unless we make some serious changes to the system. Because currently, right now, obviously, exactly that.
It's so strange because several generations have passed since I went to university on a full grant when education was free, life-changing experience for me, and it just goes to show that there are some advantages to means testing things, to enabling, getting the right amount of money to the right people. But as you said, it's if it works. That's the caveat. Let's talk about bills for a moment. They're going all over the place. In my own experience, I'm seeing as many going, I think slightly more going up, but some are going down.
Yes, so Jenny Barsby has said so many times this morning on the news, don't forget to take your meter readings, please do. Your energy provider is going to be probably changing their rates, possibly dropping in the next week, but you need to make sure that if you need to read your meter, you've done it this weekend so that your energy provider don't assume your rates and they know the exact amount that you've used. But then moving on...
Writing that on my hand.
Do meter reading, and then obviously we can talk about all the other bills. I wish I had a nicer story, but things like TV license is going to be rising in April, water bills are rising, passports, something I actually think is really important. If you do need to renew your passport, the cost of renewing that actually is rising on April 11th, so if you need to do that before then, you can. And then phone and broadband, please keep an eye out for those mid-contract price rises that are happening. These are all happening around April because they tend to happen in line with the tax year and in line with inflation rates. So some things
piling on the pain.
Can be difficult, yes.
Well, let's see if we can round up on a positive of sorts. So Jeremy Hunt announced national insurance cuts. The question is, of course, when's the cut coming in and how might it affect me?
Yes, let's end on a high. April 6th, we will see national insurance for basic rate taxpayers drop again. So we saw that drop from 12 to 10% in January 6th. But from April 6th, we're going to see it drop from 10 to 8%. So ideally what you'll see in April is your take-home pay. You'll see a drop in your tax liability and an increase in your take-home pay. I know, obviously, I've just talked about bills increasing, so, net off. Positive part.
They give with one hand and literally take slightly more with the other. Roughly what kind of, on an average income, what kind of benefit will the national insurance cut be worth?
So the tagline at the moment is it's meant to save the individual basic rate taxpayer around £900 a year, but don't forget that does include your January decrease, so about £400 again for this new one. But it will see, so let's just imagine you're on like 35, you should see about £20 more coming in April. But do make sure you look out for it, because there's lots of things on your payslip that are your responsibility to look out for, including checking changes to your taxes.
That's my 70p a day extra. Okay. Yes. Okay, I've just noticed my local pub is hurtling towards the £8 a pint barrier, so that's going to really help. Abigail Foster from the load. Thank you. Don't mean to be so facetious, but just as you just set out there, for all the benefits you get from their
Children and teens can sometimes feel a bit worried about going to school, but absences add up and can make them worry more. With the support of their friends and teachers, being in school can help them feel less worried than letting them stay at home. If your child is anxious over several weeks, talk to their school about how they can support you. Moments matter. Attendance counts. Search attendance on the Education Hub.
Hello, Chico. Come to Einstein. You know I love tracking the energy we use on our smart meter display. Well, now I found ways to help us save money on our energy bill, like learning how to lower our combi boiler flow temperature and shorten our showers to 4 minutes. Exactly. I'll track our energy use on my smart meter display.
For more ways to save, search Get a Smart Meter today. Eligibility may vary. Consumer action required.
For delicious, award-winning jerky and multiple, visit RagingBullSnacks.com and enjoy 15% off your first order.
Raging Bull Snacks, made without compromise.
Save on every range in the Oak Furnitureland Easter Sale Big Weekend, with many products now at their lowest price ever. How about a stylish new sofa for endless comfort, a luxurious bed to begin every day the right way, or a stunning dining table for trying new flavours with old friends? And right now, enjoy 3 years interest-free credit and no deposit to pay from just $4.99. The Oak Furnitureland Big Weekend ends Monday. Finance T's and C's apply. Oak Furnitureland is a credit program not an under over ends April 7th.
Activate your pension pots and get to working together with Wealthify. Use our online sliders to bring them together and build a pension plan that suits you. And when you do slide your pensions over to Wealthify, you can earn between £50 and £500 cash back. Nice. Cool. Wealthify your pensions at wealthify.com. Wealthify is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Cashback varies by total value of deposits or transfers. Minimum investment applies. Offer closes 20th of May. New customers only. T's and C's apply. Capital at risk.
At Big Mowbray World, we love giving you a huge choice of low-price cars. But we're bigger than that. Because we're big on all the things that matter to you. Like quality cars that pass all our multi-point checks. So you can drive away with confidence and peace of mind. Britain, we've got you covered with carefully chosen cars you can trust. See BigMotoringWorld.co.uk. We're big on what matters to you.
At Wickes, get Dulux Standard 2.5-litre coloured emulsion watts, £21, now 15. Be house proud with Wickes. Ends Wednesday. Terms apply.
Meet Darren. Darren never used to like the motorway. Then one day, he discovered a better way to drive. Now Darren never hogs the middle lane and always keeps at least 2 seconds from the vehicle in front, reducing congestion, collisions and transforming his journey. Take it away, Darren. Little changes change everything. National Highways.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Matthew Wright.
Legal messages. We need more people like this gentleman Hugh speaking up for the armed forces. He is spot on about the state of accommodation and the fact that they are still charges for the privilege of living in places with no heating. And he's actually mentioned his base, RAF Yourself. There we go, if I can put it out there. We're going to come to your calls. There's Fiona James hanging on the line. Stay there. I'm just going to have a quick word about King Charles because it's Easter Sunday and we're told from the papers, the Sun, that King Charles is taking, quote, gentle steps towards a return to public duties, maybe including Easter church service today. On Fraser Night, LBC's reporter is at Windsor Castle with the latest. Fraser, good morning to you.
Matthew, good morning. You can hear the church bells ringing out here at Windsor Castle ahead of what will be this morning King Charles's most significant public appearance since he announced he'd been diagnosed with cancer. He will be attending the traditional Easter service at St George's Chapel, and already outside there are a few dozen people who have gathered hoping to send their good wishes to him and his family, and many of them excited to see him out in public once again as he goes through that cancer treatment.
It would be nice to see him and just see how he's doing, yeah, definitely. Because there was a thing on my phone saying, you know, looking a bit washed out with his chemotherapy treatment, and
Andrew to lead the other royals who will be here. Notably, though, there will be no Princess Kate or Prince William at this service. They're away enjoying their Easter holidays in private after, of course, the Princess of Wales announced just last week that she too is going through treatment for cancer. And just on Thursday at the Maundy service in Worcester, the King actually pre-recorded a message for that instead of being there in person, in which he didn't allude directly to the health of him and the Princess of Wales, but many looking at his words as being a message of thanks for the support that they've received since announcing their diagnosis and their treatment.
We need and benefit greatly from those who extend the hand of friendship to us, especially in a time of need. This act of worship here in Worcester Cathedral reminds me of the pledge I made at the beginning of the coronation service, to follow Christ's example, not to be served, but to serve. That I have always tried to do, and continue to do, with my whole heart.
Now, this today is seen as a slow, as a gradual return to public appearances by the King, but many people here just pleased to see that he wants to come out, make this public appearance and be with his family on this Easter Sunday.
Great stuff. Fraser Knight there, LBC's reporter, live from Windsor Castle. I can't be the only one who gets a secret thrill when they hear that Prince Andrew has a role to play. Kind of. Let's go back to the phones. Fiona's hanging on the line from Kendal in Cumbria. Good morning to you, Fiona. Happy Easter.
Hello, thank you, Matthew. Thanks for taking my call.
What would you like to tell us? Antidepressants?
No, it's not the topic, but what I'd like to say is I don't think we have a crisis in mental health. What I think we have is a crisis in the way we live our lives and the way we are led and the decisions that we do by our leaders and that are not okay for human beings. I mean, Matthew, if we were to start again, all over again, if the world was beautiful and free and all the systems were working in the world and we hadn't crashed them,
You say that, Fiona, because I often reflect on just this question. I would argue that if you look over the story of humanity, the common thread is violent, stupid thuggery wins every time. So if we started again, the same pattern of violence, the strongest survive, to hell with everybody else.
What we know now, I want to assert that. With what we know now, and especially where we've got to, right now, we've got to the point where we view the entire environment of our, not just a place, it's because we are in the process of destroying, aren't we? We're putting our children through a...
But our politicians know this, Fiona. They know all this and they don't do anything about it.
But they're so wedded to it. You know, when you speak to them, they cannot think another way. They've been
So Rishi Sunak gave an interview the other day. This is mental health. He gave an interview the other day saying he really worries about his girls, his children. He really wants to look after them. today's show. You can listen back and catch up on the Global Player official app, where you can also pause and rewind live radio. Download it for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. I'll be back tomorrow morning from 7, coming up at 1 p.m. on LBC in Sangeeta Maiska. But up next, we heard him earlier, David Lammy.
Thank you, Matthew. Rishi Sunak in his Easter message hailed the start of spring, the season of hope, rebirth and renewal. Well, he clearly didn't see the latest poll of his party's general election prospects. In all the papers today, a wipeout. The Tories to hold fewer than 100 seats to Labour's 468. Now, Poland is always a barometer of public opinion. It's never completely accurate. So how much should we read into this?
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 10 o'clock, the King is due to make his first major public appearance since his cancer diagnosis this morning when he attends the traditional Easter Sunday service in Windsor. He'll be joined by the Queen and other members of the royal family, though the Prince and Princess of Wales will not be in attendance. These people told LBC they're looking forward to seeing him.
It's marvellous. It's great to see him back. Hopefully he'll get himself better and we'll see him doing a lot more things.
It'd be nice to see him and just see how he's doing. Yeah, definitely.
His mum brought him up to be proper, and all he wants to do is serve.
A major poll suggests the Tories will win fewer than 100 seats at a general election and be wiped out in Scotland and Wales. The survey of 15,000 people predicts a landslide victory for Labour of 468 seats. Naomi Smith is head of the campaign group Best for Britain and told LBC many senior Tories are facing the real possibility of losing their jobs.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt, he's just 1% ahead of the Liberal Democrats in his new constituency of Godalming and Ash. It's not looking good in Braintree for Cleverly either. In fact, most of the cabinet are now either set to lose or looking like they're in a very precarious position, only a couple of points ahead of their nearest rival.
Meanwhile, reports suggest Labour has lost 23,000 members in the last 2 months. It's claimed the fall is down to the party's position on Gaza and the U-turn on green investment. A teaching union says its members are turning to antidepressants and alcohol to cope with the pressures of the job. The NASUWT, which is holding its annual conference this weekend, says 87% of teachers are losing sleep over their work, with some describing feelings of total desperation. And if you don't have a smart meter, you're being urged to send in a traditional meter reading today before tomorrow's change in energy prices. The price cap, which sets the maximum you can be charged per unit, will fall by 12.3%, saving people on average around £20 a month. Peter Smith from the National Energy Action has this advice.
Also for prepayment meter customers, we've been advising them to run down credit. Don't top up today, wait until tomorrow if that's possible, because you will be charged slightly less for your energy.
LBC Weather.
With Ripple Energy, part-owner wind farm for a greener way to power your home.
Most areas will be dry with sunny spells, though turning cloudier across central and eastern England with some showers. Feeling warm in any sunshine, your high is 15 Celsius. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Jenny Balsby.
You'll have to go a long way to match a Volkswagen in match trim. They have all the bells and all the whistles. So whether it's a reliable hatchback, a super versatile SUV, or one of our exceptional all-electric ID models, you get extra spec as standard with every one of our 10 match trims. More Volkswagen for your money. Visit your Volkswagen retailer for our latest offers and more. Extra spec versus nearest equivalent VW trim. Visit volkswagen.co.uk for full details. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with David Lammy.
polls are apparently down to their lowest, 15%. And it means that if you're in Richmond and Northallerton, which is the Prime Minister's seat, he may just barely hold on to it. Love to hear from you, by the way, if you're in Richmond and Northallerton, how you'll be voting, how you feel about this poll. Jeremy Hunt has got in his constituency of Godalming and Ash. The Lib Dems would have picked that up. I think Grant Shapps is in trouble in his seat. I've got to tell you, I don't believe any of it. I'm sorry, I'm still scarred by the 1992 election, in which I think the poll difference between Labour as we went into that election was around about 4%. And you might remember the Labour Party grew in confidence. It culminated in a rally in Sheffield a few days before the general election. The public got really spooked at this overconfident Labour Party, and we went on to lose, and we had to wait till 1997 until we got Tony Blair's Labour government. My own view is that the loss in 2019 was massive, down to just 200 or so MPs, the biggest loss since 1935, and just to have a majority of one, we would need to get the swing that Tony Blair got in 1997. And in my bones, that was a massive landslide victory that Tony Blair got. It, of course, was after 18 years that we've been in opposition. We've now been in opposition 14 years. I'm not suggesting I want us to go to 18 years, but I am saying I had a powerful sense of that landslide in 1997. I just think the country's in a different place today. I cannot see, in my heart of hearts, a scenario in which the Tories are down to 100 seats. And I've got to tell you, when I knock on doors, and last week I was knocking on doors, or this week I was knocking on doors in Stoke, I was knocking on doors in my own constituency, in Tottenham, I was knocking on doors in Harlow. There are a lot of don't knows. And obviously for someone like me who's very political, and you knock on someone's door and they say, I don't know how I'm going to vote, you're in the persuasive business. But there's a lot of people who haven't made up their mind on how they're going to vote. So I was staggered when I saw that the Tories are set for 100-seat wipeout. I think I'm just sorry, I can't believe this is the sort of figure that we're seeing. I'd love to hear from you if you are a reform voter, because clearly there are Conservatives who've had enough of the Conservative Party and they're going to vote reform. And I don't think we hear from reform voters enough. So I'd love to hear from you if you're someone who is going to switch your vote to reform. I've got a lot of family down in the Chichester Harbour area of Sussex. That's traditionally been a Conservative area, Conservative voting. It's the seat of Gillian Keegan. Well, if you head down that way, everybody wants to talk to you about sewage to turn people off bothering to vote because it's a done deal. If you're a little bit cynical about that element in Britain, I'd love to hear from you as well, because I honestly think the idea that the Tories are going to be reduced to 100. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, maybe I should, put some money on the bookies. I just don't see it happening, and I almost think it's designed. This story emanates obviously from the Best of Britain, wonderful think tank. 15,000 people is a lot of people. It's a Times story that's got picked up in lots of other newspapers. So I'm a little bit sceptical of the motives as to why we hear this drumbeat about a Labour landslide, when actually to have a Labour landslide would be
turn left,
almost a first in history because of the extent to which we lost last time. So the conventional wisdom is that this is what's going to happen. You lose an election as we did in 2010. You would expect us to make some recovery by 2015. Obviously, we're fighting to win, but to have made some recovery by 2015, and indeed, Ed Miliband did make some recovery by 2015, and then to continue to make recovery at the next election. Well, unfortunately, we went right backwards by 2019, and therefore, the ground we've got to make up in 2024 is much bigger than you would have anticipated. That's why I cannot see the Tories being reduced to the numbers that we're seeing across the newspapers today. It's why I'm a little bit sceptical of those figures. But as I say to you, if you're still happy to vote Tory, please call me. If you're a Labour voter, a little bit sceptical about this landslide suggestion, or you think there's more for Labour to do, please call me. And we don't hear enough from Reform voters, Conservatives who are going to be voting Reform, and why you're going to be voting Reform, because clearly that is cutting into the Conservative vote, and Liberal Democrats, particularly in southern England, southwest, Sheffield and other places. How are you feeling? Why do I say that? Because again, this is not just about the Red Wall. There's a lot of discussion about the Red Wall, Labour winning back the Red Wall, but it's not just about those seats that we lost across the East Midlands, West Midlands, up into the northeastern parts of the northwest as well. You can win those seats, it still doesn't get us the election. We actually have Tories losing ground in the southeast, southwest as well. Therefore, those Liberal Democrat voters, some of them may be home counties, people who voted Remain, people who do not like when they look at things like the Rwanda policy, can't bear it, don't recognise the Tory party. Remember, Boris kicked out a lot of those One Nation Tories. Those sorts of people might be tempted either to vote Labour,
stay right,
because they like the presentation of the party
then
today,
turn right,
or certainly to vote Lib Dem. Love to hear from you. Call me on 0345 60 60 973. Mike calling in Baltimore.
Turn right.
Mike, what's your view?
I am totally fed up with our political system. I'm not majorly political. I've voted Conservative for 40 years, I'm 58 years old, and I just think they've made an absolute mess of everything they touch. But my problem after that is that I think Labour are no better, and sadly, I'm going to spoil my vote. I don't want to vote for any one of them, but there's no other political party that I feel can run the country.
Mike, what are the sorts of issues that you're voting about? When you say they've made a mess, you're not happy, but you have voted Conservative for 4 years, what are the sorts of things that concern you? And then we'll get to why no other party is attractive to you.
I don't want to sound like everybody else. It's NHS, it's immigration. I was in hospital in 2012. I was very poor and nearly died.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
I was in again with COVID in 2020.
Stay left.
And the way the hospitals are run, I would prefer...
At the roundabout, take the second
we're
exit.
very accountable for what we do, how we deal with people, where we spend the money, where we save money. he might be talking, and that's the problem with our country now. We talk about it, and we very rarely see the end results coming through as promised. And if they do,
the health service was in much better shape if we went back to 2010 than it is today.
So, to be fair, David, I was never in there before.
Yeah, well, because you were a relatively young man. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But I certainly was with my mother, who was dying of ovarian cancer, and I tell you, I'm sure the service that she got then is nothing, compared to what you get now.
When I went through COVID, I've got to say, I was in ICU. There was the man in the bed died, and I saw some amazing people. And there are some amazing people in NHS, but there are also people in
at the roundabout. Take the second exit.
The things that they don't do and the things that they get wrong. But yeah, I just find it very frustrating.
Mike, how does it feel to say to me that you're going to spoil your ballot? People fought to get the vote, and you're going to go in and say, look, plague on all their houses, I'm not voting for any of them.
I feel embarrassed that I'm doing it, but it's the way I feel.
Exit now.
That I just feel our political system is in turmoil, it's in trouble. I watch the Prime Minister's Questions Time, and I just see and hear a lot of nonsense going on.
Please mind the speed limit.
Dealing with what is happening at the coal base, in the towns, and some of the things I hear about how people think.
Caution.
What people
Please
expect.
mind the speed
I
limit.
live in Bolton. The town's gone down the neck. We'll talk about potholes because we've got to get over those kind of things. We need to talk about important things, but I think our political parties do a lot of talking and don't necessarily deliver.
And Mike, you said you're going to spoil your ballot. Why are you spoiling your ballot and saying not voting for reform?
Stay
you
left.
also said the other issue that you're concerned about is immigration. Now, of course, you could be voting for Labour, but you could have said, look, I'm going to vote reform.
I could do it, David. There's time yet for a general election to
Exit left.
change your mind, I guess. And I think it'll be all over the news, all over the TV, and then we'll start. Maybe I will change my view. I don't know. At this moment in time, I feel I've had enough of it all.
Okay, Mike, thank you for calling in. Well, you've heard it from Mike. He's going to spoil his ballot when it comes to the election. If you're a Conservative, do you fear for the future of your party in Westminster? Or are you still going to vote Conservative? If they've lost your vote, what would win it back? Would you vote Lib Dem? Would you vote Reform? Are the Tories really going to be wiped out at the next election? And if they are, why are you planning on voting for another party? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Listen to David Lammy here on LBC. The time is 10:18.
This is LBC. Ian Dale, Monday to Thursday evenings from 7.
It's been revealed that UK rental costs have increased at the fastest rate on record.
I'm 25 and I lived in London for the last 4.5 years. Basically moved back to Leeds, I'm keeping my job and I'm going to commute up and down this interstate rental market like I'm going to leave London. I know what it's like working to pay rent.
Ian Dale straight.
SimpsonTravel.com. Specialists in luxury Mediterranean holidays.
LBC.
How do you make good wine taste better? Let bread breathe. Chill rosé to perfection. Pair white with cheese. At Waitrose, we know there's one trick for all wine. Whether fruity Solano Prosecco, crisp Mirabeau en Provence Rosé, or oaky Terre de Faiano Organic Primitivo, they all taste even better when they cost less. Get 25% off when you buy 6 or more bottles of wine or fizz over £6 at Waitrose this Easter. Selected stores and lines, subject to availability, excludes Scotland, Wales and Jersey, excludes bottles priced £100 and over. Hi all.
Hiya.
How are we doing?
Afternoon.
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 Let's get this meeting.
Meeting.
Meeting started.
Come on.
Where's the tablet gone?
When everyone's home, EE Work Mode prioritizes your broadband for working from home with the UK's fastest major broadband provider. So,
Yeah, I've got you loud and clear as a bell.
this is broadband made for working from home. Search EE Broadband, powered by BT.
Work mode with EE Smart Hub Plus. To verify, see ee.co.uk/claims.
Have you ever heard a kettle snore? Or a hairdryer in a deep slumber? This is the sound of saving money. Because giving your appliances a power nap during peak hours isn't just better for the planet. With OVO, you'll be earning money off future bills too. See what you can save. Search OVO Power Move. Terms and eligibility criteria apply. Smart meter customers only.
Can you have your cake and eat it? Well, if you're with Lloyds Bank and you're a Club Lloyds customer, maybe you can. With the Club Lloyds Advantage ISA Saver, you get instant access to your tax-free savings and a higher interest rate of 4.25% AER if you make fewer withdrawals. You don't even have to like cake for that to make perfect sense. To get your money moving, search Club Lloyds Advantage ISA Saver. Open with 4.17% tax-free variable interest paid monthly. Rate available if you make 3 or less withdrawals.
Save on every range in the Oak Furnitureland Easter Sale Big Weekend, with many products now at their lowest price ever. How about a stylish new sofa for endless comfort, a luxurious bed to begin every day the right way, or a stunning dining table for trying new flavours with old friends? And right now enjoy 3 years interest-free credit and no deposit to pay from just $4.99. The Oak Furnitureland Big Weekend, next Monday. Finance T's and C's apply. Oak Furnitureland is a credit broker, not a lender. Offer ends April 7th.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with David Lammy.
We're talking about this poll and the story that's started in the Times but is running across all the newspapers, which is basically that the Tories are going to be wiped out in the next election, down to less than 100 members of Parliament. And let's just be clear on that. Labour had the worst election night since 1935 in 2019, and we came out with about 200 MPs. If the Tories ended up with 100 or so MPs, obviously it would be the biggest disaster in their election history. I've said that I'm a little bit sceptical. I remember 1992. I've always believed that there's a sort of small C conservative beating heart to England particularly. And so Labour should be very, very nervous of being complacent or the appearance of taking votes for granted. I was scarred by 1992 when I thought Neil Kinnock would win and he didn't. So I'd love to hear from you if you agree with me. But I do understand that there are Conservative voters out there, because I'm knocking on a lot of doors, who say they're going to vote Reform or they're going to vote Liberal Democrat. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Caution. Please mind the speed.
A lot of people who don't knows and still don't knows, and we've still got to fight for every vote. So I'm really in listening mode. I'm not in a business. I'm not, someone said, look, persuade him to vote Labour. Of course I can do that. I've been doing that. I do that on every week when I'm knocking on people's doors if they need persuading. But I don't think we need to do that on the show this morning. I'm more interested in what you've got to say. Call me on 0345 6060 973. Abdullah in Ilford.
Hi, David.
What's your view, Abdullah?
I think that first of all, myself, like probably millions of others across the UK, have been lifelong Labour voters. But Labour's stance on Gaza has taken votes away, basically, not myself, but not only myself, but probably millions across the country.
What's the stance? When you say Labour's stance, what's the bit you didn't like?
Yeah, everyone knows about Keir's stance when he said, that Israel has a right to cut off water, fuel, etc., and giving carte blanche again to Israel, like the PM did when he went over there to Israel and said, "We want you to win."
That's the Prime Minister. That's not Labour.
No, but what I'm saying is that Labour is not categorically stating that this should end, that we want it to end, that we should. The stance of Labour has been that yes, we should allow aiding, but the thing is, no use putting sticky plasters on a gaping hole in your arm. My point is, why allow this? Why not put that stuff? What the Israelis doing is absolutely wrong. The thing is, if we want people to lead us to the country, we want them to have humanity, morality, and a sense of, empathy, at least, towards innocence. If we can't have that, I'm afraid we lost our votes.
Abdullah, you will be voting at the next election, I imagine then, largely on the basis of foreign policy and the war in Israel-Gaza. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, I heard you out and I wanted you to have a good run and state what your position is. Labour's been calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire now for almost 3 months. Labour led by me, because I'm in charge of foreign policy, has been pointed out on the day the ICJ judgment that was passed by the court in Hague that made it very clear that Israel has to follow international law. I was the first MP, this was actually back in July, to start raising issues around settler violence and to say that we've got to get serious about banning those who commit that violence from this country and raising issues in the West Bank. I and my colleague Lisa Nandy have been, and actually we've both been to, I've been to nearly every single country in the region, by the way, in the region, including, of course, Israel and the West Bank. We've been calling for humanitarian aid, raising the issues of the trust, speaking to the UN, to Martin Griffiths, who leads the UN effort there on a very, very regular basis. What more could we have done? And we sit here, Abdullah, in sadly, very, very sadly, because it's horrendous, it's abominable what's happening. We sit here at the end of 2024. The whole of the global community has called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire. So the whole of the global community joins the Labour Party in calling for that position. And we still haven't got one. And yet you say at the next election, you're holding Labour up to the charge when the whole world is calling for one, but we still haven't got one. And by the way, we haven't got one at this point in time because Hamas are saying that they're not going to agree to one, as well as some of the issues in the Israeli cabinet about a ceasefire. But largely at the moment, what is being reported is that Hamas are raising obstacles in relation to that ceasefire. Why do you blame the Labour Party for that?
It's not a matter of blaming the Labour Party. My point is, I've been a lifelong Labour supporter, and I was content with the policies up until now. Up until the
what more could we have done? And what difference would it have made, Abdullah, to this situation?
Just like Russia, when they invaded, within days they were saying Putin's a war criminal. Why can Labour not say, why cannot Conservatives not say, instead of just saying we want a humanitarian pause, we want a humanitarian ceasefire for a while?
Abdullah, we've been saying this for 3 months.
Have you called Netanyahu, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir?
I've called out. I just think get off social media and actually look at what we're saying, because I've been calling out Smodrick and Ben-Gvir for a very long time indeed, way before October the 7th.
But my point is, the thing is, there's double standards here, David.
What are the double standards? Where are they?
The double standards are that, on the one side we say, like I said, why can't we call them war criminals, call them for what they are? This is absolutely appalling. We're seeing first-hand live what is happening in Gaza.
Of course we are, but your concern about it is no stronger than mine. That's the point. It's the sort of moral... I think most of the global community look at the loss of life of children and women and the rubble and of course, and the hostages still held, and are just thoroughly appalled. But I still go back to saying, to get a ceasefire, you need both sides to agree. So you can call for it, and I'm sure Abdullah, you were calling for it, very, very early. I can call for it. We were calling for it for 3 months, but we haven't got it. Doesn't mean that your moral outrage is better than mine.
What if myself? Not that I would. I mean, heaven forbid. But I'm saying, look, what if myself and tens of thousands of others went over to protect the innocent civilians? Would that be allowed?
But you can't go over. How are you going to get into Gaza, Abdullah? You can't get in because there's a blockade. You can't get the aid in. How are you going to get in?
So why are people going from here to fight with the IDF? Why are UK citizens going to fight with the IDF?
Abdullah, they're citizens. I'm a dual national because I've got citizenship of the UK, my home, but I also have some citizenship of Guyana, the country of my parents' birth, and those are people who have dual citizenship. But look, Abdullah, I've given you a big run on this because you said you're not voting Labour because of the position on Israel-Gaza, and I wanted to hear you out, we've heard you out, and I've countered you because obviously as Shadow Foreign Secretary I've been part of marshalling the Labour position on this subject. And I just don't recognise some of the caricature, but but you've made your point. I think we should go back to the mainstay issue, and that is a Tory wipeout in Britain. I'm asking callers to call in as to why, whether they're sceptical about that Tory wipeout, why they might not be voting Tory, particularly if they're voting Lib Dem or Reform. We've heard from Abdullah there as a Labour voter as to why he feels he's not able to vote Labour, a lifelong Labour voter, and you've heard me make the case for why I think he's giving the Labour Party a hard time unduly, given that most of the world want a ceasefire and we haven't got one. But call me on 0345 6060 973. The time now is 10:30. And it's the news headlines with Jenny Barsby.
Well-wishers are gathering in Windsor to catch a glimpse of King Charles on his first high-profile public appearance since his cancer diagnosis. He's due to attend this morning's traditional Easter Sunday service, accompanied by the Queen and other members of the royal family. A new poll says Labour would win a landslide victory if there was a general election today, taking 468 seats. A survey of 15,000 people predicts the Tories would win fewer than 100. And 10 million households are being urged to send a meter reading to their supplier today to ensure they don't overpay when cheaper prices come into effect tomorrow. The price cap, which sets the maximum you can be charged per unit, will fall by 12.3%, saving people around £20 a month. LBC's weather mostly dry with sunny spells today, though central and eastern England could see some showers. Your top temperature, 15 degrees.
This is LBC.
Life is full of choices, both big and small. Like whether to sell your old car and buy a new one, perhaps even go electric, or whether to call in and put all your energy into the on-air debate. And did you know you also have a choice when it comes to your healthcare? If your GP suggests you see a specialist, you can choose where you go. This could be a hospital with shorter waiting times, a hospital closer to family or friends, or easier to get to. It's your patient choice. To find out more about choosing your hospital, visit nhs.uk/patient choice.
Specsavers have asked me to tell you something important, so I've gone creative and dug out my old jack-in-the-box. It's about prices and how they jump up when you least expect them. I said, jump up when you least expect them. At Specsavers, glasses still start from £15. Not now, Jack, including standard single-vision lenses only. He's going to jump up now, isn't he? Oh, well, you're better off with Specsavers. Oh, I knew it. Ask in-store for details.
Experience. It tells you that when choosing a Saga escorted tour, you can see more and do more. With our knowledgeable and friendly guides, take in live music at the Grand Ole Opry in America's Deep South, or taste your way through Italy on a grand tour, a feast for your senses. And we always include a VIP door-to-door transfer, so your holiday begins the moment you leave home. Simply search Saga Tours today and book early to get the best prices for your tour. Escorted touring by Saga. Experience is everything.
For over 50s only. APTA and ATOL protected.
The UK's first human heart transplant has been completed, supported by the British Heart Foundation.
We were a noisy generation, but it might be something quiet we do that becomes our greatest legacy. Leave a gift in your will to the British Heart Foundation and fund groundbreaking research that could help save millions of lives. Search BHF Wills.
Here in the Southeast, we sell amazing products and services the whole world wants.
We're global processing services from London, and we help people pay in innovative ways in over 48 countries.
Whilst at Naturally Tribal in Milton Keynes, our all-natural skincare range soothes skin conditions in 5 countries.
So whether you're new to exporting or experienced, explore global growth for your business with free support from the UK government. Access information, training, events and expert advice to help you find new customers overseas. Visit great.gov.uk to get started.
How do you make good wine taste better? Let red breathe. Chill rosé to perfection. Pair white with cheese. At Waitrose, we know there's one trick for all wine. Whether fruity Sanleo Prosecco, crisp Mirabeau en Provence Rosé, or oaky Terre de Faiano Organic Primitivo, they all taste even better when they cost less. Get 25% off when you buy 6 or more bottles of wine or fizz over £6 at Waitrose this this Easter. Selected stores and loans subject to availability. Scotland, Wales and Jersey. Excludes bottles priced £100 and over.
You have 3 new messages.
Dad, quick one. Don't forget to turn the heating off before going to Gran's. Then when you're getting home to shriveled plant babies. Totally forgot what I called. Spoke to Zara from St James's Place about Gran's care. Moving her in is the best option for peace of mind and my pocket. Don't think the grab rails will match the decor though. Love you, bye!
While you're looking out for the ones you love, our one-to-one financial advisors are looking out for you. St James's Place. Invaluable advice.
David Lammy on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Tory wipeout across the newspapers. Do you believe it? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Jerry in Whitley Bay. Good morning, Jerry. What's your view?
Right, I think the polling is largely accurate. If you take a conglomeration of recent polls, they're not far out from, pretty much all of the polls advocated. So, I think it's genuine.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
Personally, I'll be voting for reform, because I think the Tories have let us down in a number of areas.
Jerry, just you say now, how have you voted in the past over your voting life?
My first vote was 1979 for Margaret Thatcher. Barring European elections, I have not changed since.
Right, so you're leaving the Conservatives and you're now voting for reform.
Yeah.
Why?
Several reasons. One is they're incapable of managing the media in any shape or form. They do run away with narratives that are simply not correct in a lot of cases and just curl up and shrivel.
Really? I mean, you'd say that. I mean, that's interesting because I think we're starting blaming the way that they run their comms as the central issue that you're dealing with.
Well, again, here's a good example for you, David. You know the water companies are getting absolute bashing at the moment.
And so they should be.
Right. Just reading from Surface Against Sewage, who did a long report in geographical.co.uk. And they all say on top, I'll read you this bit. It said, raw sewage and CSOs account for somewhere between 4 and 12% of the reasons why our rivers are in poor ecological health. They aren't even the primary cause.
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
And it goes on to list
Caution. Please mind the speed limit. Caution. Please mind the speed limit. Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
Well, look, Jerry, that's your statement, and that may well be their statement. I haven't seen that fact, but I've got to tell you, right across the country, ordinary people can look into the
Caution.
and
Please
they
mind
can
the speed
see
limit.
the brown muck that's there. I've spoken to friends, family in Sussex, gone for a swim and picked up a nasty bug. And people know that this wasn't the case 15 years ago. It wasn't the case 20, 25 years ago. It is the case now. Now, there might be other things in the water, but clearly we have a substantial problem in our waterways as a result of a failure of the water companies to invest. The privatisation has gone wrong, and now a suggestion by some that the taxpayer should effectively pick up the bill, either by the water companies passing the bill to ordinary people, or indeed by nationalisation, which would mean that the public pick up the bill.
David, whichever way you do it, the bill always comes down to the consumer, much as it does with net zero. If you're going to spend fortunes on net zero, either the government pays, in which case the taxpayer pays, or you make business do it, in which case businesses pay for it, but then the consumers have to pay for it because the businesses won't do it for free.
Go straight.
Wherever you go, it comes down to the consumer.
Net zero, he raises another issue, why I suspect you're voting reform. do you believe it's all a load of hocus pocus and we shouldn't be taking seriously the climate emergency that means that our grandchildren are not going to have much to inherit? It's driving people leaving the Horn of Africa and driving conflict. You can surely see in your garden that there's some real issues with the climate emergency. Surely we have to act now, or we'll end up paying more later.
Right, one thing, is it real? Yes, I do believe it is. Secondly, can we do much about it? Very, very costly. I spent 35 years in the electricity supply.
Caution, please mind the speed limit.
The gas stations, the nuclear stations. And I can tell you the cost of doing this is going to be absolutely enormous. It's going to produce
Caution, please mind the speed limit.
in what I would call day-to-day batteries, season storage.
Caution, please mind the speed limit.
And the only way to use hydrogen is you would have to use renewable energy to put that through an electrolyzer to then create hydrogen, to then pressure store hydrogen, to then take the hydrogen and then reburn that in a gas-fired power station when you need it. And the efficiency of that
That avoids the gains, both onshore and offshore wind. It avoids the challenge
Caution,
of dealing with
please mind the speed
Of course, there may be a role for hydrogen, but I think it's not the whole solution. But Jerry, you've explained why you're voting reform. Thank you for calling in. James in Barnes. James.
David, good morning. David, I've always voted for the Labour Party, and I suppose you would say to me, I'm sure you're going to vote for the Labour Party this time.
No, not necessarily. You tell me, James, how you're going to vote.
But I am very concerned about the Labour Party in as much as Keir Starmer. I'm sure you're aware of the Gordon Brown speech that he made about poverty this week or last week. And even though you may say, well, listen, he's only saying what we're saying is different in a different way. Nevertheless, when you listen to Gordon Brown and making that speech, you think there's a man with a vision for this country, for trying to solve the poverty of this country. And unfortunately, when I look at Keir Starmer, and I'm sure he comes across as a very nice guy, and I'm sure he is, nevertheless, the decisions that I see that he's made, and I know you had a caller talk about the Gaza war, and I would concur with that. But when the war started, he was on Nick Ferrara's program, as we know, happy that Israel was cutting off military.
Caution, please mind the speed
Can I
limit.
just come back to that? Because you've got 4%.
Yeah.
Tell me, let's just be clear on the opposite. And one, that Keir apologised and explained that he misspoke after that interview.
Yeah.
And I do think when human beings, we're all human beings, make a mistake and say I'm sorry, that we have to hear that. And that's the first thing. The second thing, and I say this is, I'm not going to suggest I'm not biased, but I say this again as a sort of fellow human being, as a friend, a dear friend of
Caution, please mind the speed limit.
what actually happened in the 24 hours before that interview? I tell you what happened. He'd gone on stage to deliver
Stay left.
probably the biggest
And then
speech
exit
at that
left.
stage of his life, to rally Labour at the party conference.
Exit left.
A party conference that had the dark shadow of what had happened just 3 days before in Israel, with Hamas entering and killing that many people. That was the context. He started
Right.
the party conference, and you'll remember that it was interrupted. His family his wife certainly sat in the crowd watching. At the stage of the interruption, you don't quite know what can happen, by the way. Now, on this occasion, it was just glitter. The protester was stopped. He got through his speech. He then did a morning round, and I'm telling you, so you're getting up early in the morning, apologised. Now, I'm not suggesting the seriousness of cutting off aid and all those things, but I am saying, James, you put yourself in that situation. You're party leader, you got a big speech, you make a mistake, you apologise, and it's still being brought up as the reason for why we haven't got a ceasefire. Well, we all know that the reason we haven't got a ceasefire is because there have been problems with Hamas and problems in the Israeli government, not the Labour Party.
I think...
Caution. Please mind the speed limit.
It was not the fact that he said it and then he apologised, that's fine. Because he clearly did not think
Caution.
that, I don't doubt
Please
that.
mind the
But
speed
there's
limit.
a reason why he was very careful what he
Caution.
said, David.
Please mind the speed limit.
Something about him as a suitable Prime Minister. And the same thing happened in Rochdale. He was so scared to upset the Jewish vote in this country because of the anti-Semitism that he's quite rightly tried to get rid of in your party, that he was very reticent about criticising Israel because of that fact that he did not want to be seen to be challenging everything that he tried to get rid of in your party. And that strikes me as a man that was not going with his convictions. He did not, I don't believe...
James, would you really prefer... look, do you know what? Hang on, James, let me just come back to you on that.
Yeah.
Every day of the week, I prefer a leader who cares about minorities, cares and wants to be careful and deal with anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, racism, any form of prejudice. I'd prefer that over some of the politicians we've had in recent times that don't seem to care a monkey about minorities, almost inflame and stoke division. You know the names that I could call out, but let me just bring one to mind, Suella Braverman. I prefer Keir Starmer every single second, minute, hour of the day over a politician like that. And that's the choice at the next election. Listen to David Lammy. Time now is 10:47.
It's Carol Vorderman here on LBC. There have been more Conservative members of Parliament who have been booted out of Parliament than there have been cases of voter fraud.
Listen on your radio and on Global Player.
It's too easy to cast a vote. You don't know how much fraud is going on.
And neither do you, Bob.
How many times are you going to say that?
Because it's the truth.
Carol Vorderman, today from 4 on LBC.
Now your ideas don't have to wait. Now they have everything
Caution.
they need to come
Please
to
mind the
life.
speed limit.
Dell Technologies and Intel are creating technology that loves ideas, loves expanding your business, evolving your passions. We push what technology can do, so great ideas can happen right now. Find out how to bring your ideas to life at Dell.co.uk. Welcome to Now.
Meet Darren. Darren never used to like the motorway. Then one day, he discovered a better way to drive. Now Darren never hogs the middle lane and always keeps at least 2 seconds from the vehicle in front, reducing congestion, collisions and transforming his journey. Take it away, Darren. Little changes change everything. National Highways.
Just checking in, Money Super 7. Are you on the case?
We're under control!
Where on earth are you?
Sorry, boss. Just testing the new rewards. We're giving customers a year and 3 days out worth £160 when they save on their car insurance, broadband, and more. Like theme parks.
Well, keep up the research.
The Super Save Club from Money Supermarket. Seriously rewarding. Qualifying purchase with an account, 3 days out via app, value based on one visit monthly, average ticket £13, October 23, 17 plus, UK only, see site for terms.
Hey, Harry.
Hello, mate.
Got any tips for the football?
Your best bet is to head to Bet Victor, but a little tip from me, see how the players get off the bus.
What's that?
Well, if they've got their headphones on and that look on their face, it means they're up for it. But if they're in their casuals with one of those designer man bag, handbag, boot bag things, jog on. What they keep in there anyway, a packed lunch? Lunch? Got to buy a mash today. Gotta go, pal.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on the football at BetVictor. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Nothing beats a Jet 2
holiday. So count on us to make sure your summer holiday is worth every penny. With over 50 sunny destinations, an amazing choice of 2 to 5-star hotels, and 22 kilograms of baggage included. Book summer now from London Stansted with just a £60 deposit per person and spread the cost with flexible monthly payments. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. Amtrak protected. Subject to availability conditions.
You alright, mate? Oh, my boiler's knackered. Do you know any plumbers?
Yeah, I do, yeah. You know Danny? Well, he lives next door to this woman who's engaged to this lady who went to school with a bloke called Gary.
Alright. Is he a plumber?
No, he's not, no. But he knows a bloke who walks a dog with this woman. Debbie, I think she's called. Well, she gets her hair cut with Sam.
Don't worry. You already know somebody who fixes boilers. British Gas. And you don't even have to be one of our customers. Our engineers are local, and their work is guaranteed for 12 months. Search British Gas Boiler Repairs.
So, is he a plumber? Technically, no. But he's got a van.
At Big Motoring World, we love giving you thousands of cars to choose from. But we're bigger than that. Because we're big on all the things that matter to you. Like a haggle and hassle-free low prices. Because 90% of our cars are priced below market value. Britain, we've got you covered. With honest prices you can trust. See bigmotoringworld.co.uk. We're big on what matters to you.
The sound of. There's nothing more satisfying than a garden spring clean with Karcher. Whether it's decking, patios, fences or driveways, dirt, dust and moss don't stand a chance against Karcher's pressure washers. This is what Karcher Clean feels like. Bring back the wow.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with David Lammy.
More of your calls in a moment on the latest poll suggesting that Tories will be wiped out in the next generation. But first, let's speak about these leaked recordings suggesting that government's lawyers have said Israel is breaking international law. And as a result of that, the UK has to suspend arms sales that could be used in Gaza. And this story is in The Observer, where the chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, Alicia Keys, says the Tory fundraiser that legal advice would mean the UK has to cease all arms sales to Israel without delay. I'm joined by Sir Geoffrey Nice, who's a barrister who led the prosecution of former Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic for war crimes at the International Criminal Tribunal. Thank you so much, Sir Geoffrey, for joining me. For listeners who might not understand the complexity of the law in this area, just explain why this story, and probably the story over the next coming days, is so important. Has the government received advice from its own lawyers making clear that there is a clear risk that arms that have been sold by the UK are being used in the Gaza conflict that break international law?
Thank you for inviting me to contribute. We must understand that, regrettably, war is still regarded as possibly lawful around the world. But when war is conducted, the parties concerned have checked should check they're doing meets the test, should provide international committee the requisites material amongst other cases, and their response their mind is has to be proportionate. This is before we get to genocide, but which I have something else to say. In the case of the Israel-Gaza
caution, please mind the speed.
Going issue, of course, to the Israeli suffering the most dreadful, criminal, and quite possibly genocidal in part attack by Hamas and others. Concerns developed rapidly that the response of Israel might not be justified simply as self-defense or as lawful search for the hostages, but might be not proportionate and therefore unlawful. Those concerns grew and grew. People with great authority, it's not for commentators who, like me, express and find review, but people with much greater authority yes, this is disproportionate. Crimes are being committed. Now, a country that supplies arms in circumstances where those arms may be used in unlawful warfare inevitably becomes at risk of being found complicit. Just to take it's not a silly, but an example. No neighbours that damage his partner in providing with a gun, he uses it to feeds it. Of course, you're not free of blame, you are to blame for doing that. In the case of provision of arms, there's sometimes been attempts to say, well, you can have these arms. It's happened, for example, in the Russia-Ukraine war. You can have these arms, but you can only use them in certain circumstances. That was a rather difficult restriction to monitor. And indeed, in the last provision of the present provision of arms by America to Israel, there's been no attempt to do that. So what's happened? It's bound to happen in a case of a country like the United Kingdom providing arms to countries abroad, as their lawyers will advise whether it looks as though the war is being conducted lawfully. They're bound to do that on the peninsula. It's obvious that they will have done it in both these conflicts, particularly concerning the Israeli position.
Caution,
Israeli,
please mind the speed limit.
and if they have advised, as Alicia Kearns tells us, that the war is not being conducted lawfully, well then the government is at risk if it carries on providing weapons without any attempt to
Stay left.
use.
And then
So that's
continue
what
straight.
Now what's happened if Alicia Kearns' account is accurate?
Go straight.
Accurately accounted for, recounted by the other people at the meeting, and if it is itself accurate, it's not at all without precedent. In 1994, when the Rwanda genocide was going on, for example, everybody knew it was a genocide. The countries withdrew and exposed.
Never mind.
That
I'll find a new
genocide
route.
to carry on killing
Stay
thousands of
left.
people.
And then continue straight.
Should have acted differently.
Go straight.
What happened was that the British lawyers, the Foreign Office lawyers, correctly advised the then Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd that if he used the word genocide, he would be obliged by law to act. So what was the response of the government through Douglas Hurd? It was to say to his team, slamming the table on one occasion, never use the word genocide and then we won't have to act. There are ways in which governments can get round proper legal advice they receive in order to do what they want to politically, even if it's in breach of international law and in all probability contrary to what
Geoffrey,
the vote would want.
Sir Geoffrey, sorry to cut you because that was a very erudite explanation of why this is so important. But if the government has received that advice, is it your opinion that they should publish the advice because of the seriousness, frankly, and the public concern, not just in the UK but around much of the developed world, about this issue?
My opinion, yes. The public would want to know. The public's entitled to know if its country is supporting lawful warfare or maybe supporting unlawful warfare. Put the other way around, what conceivable reason is there for them not saying we're acting on the basis of advice received? And do you think if they had received clear advice that what they were doing by way of supporting Israel in this conflict was lawful, do you think they wouldn't have told us that? And of course, going back to Iraq, there are other examples of difficulties with legal advice received and acted.
Sir Geoffrey, very, very grateful to Geoffrey Nice there, who led the prosecution of former Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic for war crimes at the International Criminal Tribunal. I'm sure this story about whether the government has received legal advice, and certainly whether they should publish that legal advice,
Caution.
and
Please mind the speed
suspend
limit.
or not, arms sales to Israel will be a running issue for the next few days. Thank you for all your contributions in that hour. Coming up, let's talk about Britain's aid budget. This week, former Tory Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick said that foreign aid
at the
should be
roundabout,
halved
take the third
to fund
exit.
a 3% spending on defence. He thinks slashing the aid budget would generate about $7 billion of extra spending per year. He has stated that the armed forces are shockingly underprepared and Britain's nuclear deterrent has been appallingly neglected. It's worth remembering the government has already cut the aid budget from 0.7% to 0.5% in this parliament. So is Jenrick right? Should we be cutting our foreign aid budget further? Is defence spending more important? Or do we have a moral responsibility as a global power to help nations that are less well off?
On your radio, on Global Player,
exit now,
and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 11 o'clock, the King and Queen have waved at crowds of well-wishers in Windsor on His Majesty's first major public appearance since his cancer diagnosis. LBC's Fraser Knight is there for us.
It was a brief moment for the King to stop
Please
and
mind the
wave
speed
at the small crowd that's gathered outside. He seemed in high spirits and thanked those who were shouting from the other side of the road, "Happy Easter." You'll hear the organ playing in the background. The arrivals of the full royal family have just happened. We watched Prince Andrew walking in first alongside Princess Royal, Princess Anne. She was there with the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh as well, Edward and Sophie.
The royal family is attending the traditional Easter Sunday service, so the Prince and Princess of Wales are absent. Russell Myers, royal editor for the Daily Mirror, told LBC the King is keen to get back to normal as much as possible.
He definitely wanted to show he is okay. I mean, he's obviously undergoing this cancer treatment for the last few weeks. We've seen him doing a smattering of engagements, scaled down as there may be at Buckingham Palace, and this will be a more scaled down congregation today as well to try and minimise that risk of infection.
A man has been arrested on suspicion of murder after the body of a woman was found at a house in Birmingham. The 48-year-old was discovered yesterday in Tile Cross. West Midlands Police says officers will be carrying out extra patrols to reassure the public and offer support to the community.
Stay left.
A poll of 15,000 people
Then
is
turn
predicting
left.
the Conservatives would only win 98 seats if there was a general election today. That would give Labour a landslide victory of 468 seats and see the Tories effectively wiped out in Scotland and Wales. And 10 million households being urged to send a meter reading to their supplier today to ensure they don't overpay when cheaper prices come into effect tomorrow. The price cap, which sets the maximum you can be charged per unit, will fall by 12.3%, saving people around £20 a month. Peter Smith from National Energy Action has this advice for people who can't get through on the phone today.
If you take a photo of your meter, if that's at all possible, or ask a neighbour to do it if you haven't got the mobility to do it yourself, that time-stamped image of your meter should be appropriate.
LBC Weather.
Stay
With
left.
Ripple Energy,
And then
climate
continue
action
straight.
you can be proud of. Most areas will see a dry day with some sunny spells, so turning cloudy
straight.
across central and eastern England with some showers. Feeling warm in the sunshine though, your high is 15 Celsius. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Jenny Barsby.
Not shopped at Ocado, but you've heard it's the best. Now you can shop for 25% less. And groceries delivered free to your address. There's an Ocado just for you.
First time customer, get 25% off your grocery shop and free delivery.
There's an Ocado just for you.
New customers only. Minimum spend £60. Max saving £20. Geographical restrictions apply. Conditions at ocado.com. Verify at info@ocadoretail.com.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with David Lammy.
In this hour, I want to talk about aid and the aid budget. I'm talking about the £15.7 billion of UK taxpayers' money that is spent on aid. The 5 countries that are the biggest recipients of UK aid money, certainly in 2022, were Afghanistan, where, of course, you'll remember, we had troops stationed for decades. and we had a terrible withdrawal, and we have women, particularly and young girls, at the mercy of the Taliban. We spend a considerable amount of money in Ukraine, of course, for all the reasons that you will understand, given the war in Ukraine. Nigeria, Somalia, Ethiopia, those are the countries that receive the largest amount of UK aid spending. We are a member of the UN Security Council, one of the 5 nations, along with France, China, and Russia, that are part of the UN Security Council, along with the United States. The United States is the biggest funder of aid globally, $55.3 billion spent by the United States. Germany spends $35 billion. Japan spends $17.5 billion US dollars. France spends $15.9 billion dollars, and as I've told you, we spend $15.7 billion. Back in 1970, we committed to spend 0.7% of our aid budget, or to move along in that journey. It took us a long time to get there. We didn't get there until 2015, but we've cut back from the 0.7% to 0.5%. But just to be clear, even with that 0.5% budget and the £15.7 billion that we're spending, quite a lot of it we're actually spending in this country. We're spending £3.7 billion of our aid budget in housing refugees, effectively, and hosting refugees in Britain. Now, most of them are Ukrainian, but there are many, many other people who know this business about housing refugees, particularly in hotels. That's coming from the UK aid budget. And the decision by the government to scrap the Department for International Development and to cut our aid budget mean that there are lots of things that we were supporting that were suddenly cut dramatically. Our aid money helps to vaccinate 12 million children in the past from preventable diseases. Do you think that's important? It supported particularly girls to go to primary school across much of the developed world. 15.3 million the Department for International Development spent on enabling girls to go to primary school. It's done a lot of work to support women with sexual health, to stop things like female genital mutilation, and maybe women listening will clearly still happy that their taxpayers' money has helped support other women who stood in solidarity with those young girls across much of the global community. We don't do it on our own. A lot of our money goes towards multilateral funds. That means we support other, working with G7 countries like Japan and others to make sure our money goes very far. Of course, vaccination is really important to prevent disease, to save money down the line, because we're vaccinating children across much of the developed world, and working, of course, with charities like Save the Children, like Oxfam, like ActionAid, to get and support those millennium goals, which were established by Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, working with others to really reduce child poverty, particularly across the world, and also help countries deal with the climate emergency. So that's what our aid budget has spent on. And the question is, in 2024, can we afford to spend that money on those issues? Has Britain got a moral obligation to spend money on those issues as a global power, as a country on the UN Security Council? Is it important that we spend funds in that way? And does spending funds in that way stop some of the issues that will only come to our borders? Issues like extremism, issues like why people flee countries and migration. If you're not supporting, if you like, growth in the Horn of Africa and jobs and opportunities for young people, you can expect those young people thinks that we've got to cut that money further. Not just to 0.5%, but we've got to cut it probably down to something like 0.2.5%, and we've got to spend that money on defence, because we know that there are issues with defence spending in Europe at this time. Across European countries, we're spending about 2.1% of our GDP on defence. But with Russia behaving the way it is, with concerns about China in the Taiwan Straits, a lot of people believe that Europe has got to raise its game. We've heard Donald Trump saber-rattling about NATO and whether, in fact, European countries are paying their fair share. France and the UK represent 50% of Europe's defence budget. And many people believe that the UK has to be spending more like 2.5% on its defence budget. Well, Jenrick says to get that money, we should cut our aid budget. I've got to say, cutting our aid budget would not provide enough money for defence. So I think Robert gets it wrong when he suggests that. But you might also say, hang on a minute, how can we have been stationed in Afghanistan and left under the circumstances we left, and then not feel prepared to support young women who are not being paid, to support families across Afghanistan who are starving, by the way, and a lot of starvation in Afghanistan as a result of weather, conflict, the Taliban's bad running, if you like, of that country particularly. And for example, should we not be spending the 30 million that we pledged to the Palestinian people? Would you want Britain to withdraw from when we talk about aid going into Palestine, again, it's taxpayers' money that funds that aid to go into Palestine. We know not nearly enough of what's going in, but at the moment we've got the UK dropping aid parcels over Palestine. That's our aid budget. Should we be spending that money in Palestine? It sounds like Robert Jenrick thinks that it's money not well spent. We need to cut back on that money. You saw the horrendous floods that lost so many people's lives in Pakistan. There'll be lots of people listening who have Pakistani origins. Again, should Britain be spending that money? And Britain has a relationship, best seen through the Commonwealth, parts of the Caribbean, parts of the Pacific, substantial parts of Africa, because of our history, from which we gained a lot. And that's why you might say it's important for Britain to hold out an arm, particularly to those countries. So not all countries in the world, but particularly those countries like Nigeria, countries like Ghana, like Kenya, where we have a deep relationships. Now, we spend far less time in the Caribbean region because many of those countries are what we call middle-income economies like Barbados. So there isn't a lot of money, actually, aid money, if any, going to a country like Barbados. But where you've still got countries with tremendous poverty, there is a commitment. Now, some say, why are we spending aid money in China? And we are. Some say, why are we spending aid money in India? And we are. Now, we know there's a lot of poverty in India, but some might say, hang on a minute, India's economy is booming. It's got a rising middle class. Surely the Indians and the Indian government should be picking up the tab for their problems, not the British taxpayer. And is that a legitimate debate? You know, there's scarce funds. Should we still be funding aid to China and aid to India? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Let's talk about whether you agree with Robert Jenrick. Is he right? Should we be cutting our foreign aid budget further? Is defence spending more important? Or do we have a moral responsibility as a global power to help nations that are less well off? Call me on 0345 6060 973. Mick in Sutton Coldfield says, David, anyone who's the knowledge of defence knows that the part of the aid budget plays in in maintaining stability in volatile regions, and as a result of that stability, not needing to get involved in peacekeeping or combat operations is vitally important. So reducing the aid budget potentially leads to more overstretching for the military, not less. That's a strong point from Nick, it seems to me, in Sutton Coldfield. And another one here from Orpington, from Shovik. David, aid should continue for all the regions you referred to, not least to deal with the terrorism and the climate emergency in those economies, understanding that it was countries like the UK that gave those countries a climate emergency, not those countries themselves. Aid should go through UN agencies and British registered charities. A lot of our aid actually does go through the multilateral system, and a lot of that is run from the UK. So let's talk about aid and how important. There'll be people out there who contribute to Christian Aid, Oxfam, Action Aid, for example, and care a lot about aid. Comic Relief, for example. There'll be people out there who care a lot about our defence and know that our armed forces are being expected to live in housing that's poor, use facility that's poor, have kit that's poor. So we definitely need to think about defence spending. But is the answer to cut the aid budget, given that the aid budget has already been cut substantially, and a lot of it is currently being spent not abroad, but in this country, housing refugees? Call me after the break. You listen to David Lammy here on LBC. The time now is 11:17.
This is LBC.
Life is full of choices, both big and small. Like whether 2024 is the year you finally move home, or decide it's better to stay put, or what series to watch next when you're not moving from your sofa. And did you know you also have a choice when it comes to your healthcare? If your GP suggests you see a specialist, you can choose where you go. This could be a hospital with shorter waiting times, a hospital closer to family or friends, or easier to get to. It's your patient choice. To find out more about choosing your hospital, visit nhs.uk/patient choice.
My granny visits Specsavers. No chance.
No, my daughter doesn't go to Specsavers.
You're having a laugh. My sister goes to Specsavers.
Specsavers? For my mum, it's out of the question. Dad? Oh, he hasn't been to Specsavers in years.
If your loved ones can't make it into a Specsavers store, it's easy to arrange home visits. Our opticians are caring and highly trained. To find out if your loved ones are eligible, visit our website.
Toner and ink.
Get yours in a blink and for less than you think at cartridgepeople.com for unbeatable prices.
Cartridge People.
Printing sorted.
See online for our price promise.
In need of